Greetings and welcome once again to Sonic Odyssey, the music video channel dedicated to bringing you the last 5 decades or so of music in review and discussion format. Before we dive into today's topic, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Please be sure to like the video by clicking the thumbs up button. That helps the YouTube algorithm get the video out to more people. Also, please consider subscribing to the channel if you're not already a subscriber, and you can click the little bell icon that appears next to the subscribe button, and that way you'll be alerted each time I release a new video. Also, you can consider sharing the video by clicking the share button. There you'll see there are options to share through Facebook, Twitter, and many other social media networks. And lastly, most humbly, I would ask you to consider visiting my Patreon page, for which there's a link in the show description right below the video. And there you'll see the different tiers that are available. You can help the channel stay on YouTube, and I don't make any money through advertising revenue or anything of that nature, as I don't have that many subscribers right now, and also I use music in my videos, as you'll hear later in the video, so I can't make any money from YouTube for this, so I do ask for you to possibly consider visiting the Patreon page and contributing to keeping the channel going. You'll see there are many tiers available there, and surely if you are so inclined and so generous, your patronage would be greatly appreciated. So thank you very much for considering doing so. I really appreciate it. Today we're going to be listening to and looking at a band from my home state of New Jersey before I moved over here to Taiwan, and that is the band Overkill. They are a thrash metal band that have been around actually longer than most of their peers from the same era. They actually formed in 1980, and that was a full year or so before bands such as Slayer, Exodus, and Anthrax and Metallica formed in 1981. Those other bands, however, did get their initial album releases in 82 or 83, whereas for Overkill, it was not until 1985 that they had their first LP release. So as I say, they did predate such bands as Metallica, Slayer, and Anthrax, but whereas those bands have released, in the case of Metallica, 10 albums, in the case of Slayer, 12 albums, and for Anthrax, 11 albums, Overkill has actually released from 1985 through 2019 a total of 19 albums. And today we're going to be looking at and listening to their 17th studio album, which was released in 2014, entitled White Devil Armory. Overkill have gone through a number of lineup changes during their career, even prior to their first album release, but the one constant that has always been there for the band is bassist Dee Dee Verney and vocalist Bobby Blitz Ellsworth, and they are the primary songwriters for the band as well. Both Dee Dee and Bobby have recorded on all of the band's studio releases as well as their live releases, and as I stated, they are the primary songwriters for the band. In fact, many of their albums are entirely written by just the pair of Verney and Ellsworth. The current lineup of the band includes Dave Linsk on lead guitar, Derek Taylor on rhythm guitar, and Jason Bittner on drums. Jason Bittner is the newest member of the band. He's been an official member of the band since 2017, and both Dave and Derek have been with the band since around 1999, 2000-ish, so they've been with the band for a couple of decades now. So the lineup of the band has been pretty consistent for most of their recordings over the last 2 decades, which includes the album we are looking at today, White Devil Armory. And as I said, Jason joined the band in 2017, so the drummer on this album is a drummer that had been with the band for a number of years, recording on 5 albums with the band. His name is Ron Lipnicki. As to the title of the album, White Devil Armory, Bobby Ellsworth has been quoted as saying, and I quote, "We need a thread when we start writing, and the thread this time was Armory. It came out of Dee Dee. He was writing with that in mind, and there were some Google pages and images he was sending on different armories around the world. I said, I like it, but I want to go somewhere with it. And Dee Dee said, do your worst." End quote. I think it's safe to say that they both did their worst for this album, and it really shines through. 17 albums into their career at this point of this recording, this is one of their heaviest and most biting releases to date. White Devil Armory opens with a 50-second intro track entitled XDM before exploding with the album's proper first track, which is Armorist. But don't take my word for it, let's hear a little bit taken from the opening of this second track of the album, Armorist. This snippet shows the band bursting out of the gates with full force and a heavy thrash and groove-driven attack. It is got the signature type musicianship that the band has with Bobby's unique snarling style of vocals over the sound of the band. You can hear that the drumming is rather spectacular through this bit. Ron Lipnicki did a brilliant job of rotating his speeds throughout the album, and you'll get a little bit more of that in the next snippet I'll play for you in just a few minutes. But you can hear the thundering bass of Dee Verdi underneath the great guitar work of both Dave and Derek. They do a brilliant job in laying this heavy groove onto the sound, and it's a very forceful and driving kind of sound. This is really the style that Overkill does better than any of their contemporaries. And while their contemporaries may have sold many, many more albums than Overkill has sold over their careers, Overkill has certainly done very well for themselves. They've had more than 5 million album sales from 1985 through 2019 of all of their 19 studio albums. So they've got a pretty good track record. And also, this album was fairly well received. White Devil Armory was their best charting album to date, with it debuting at the number 31 spot in the Billboard Top 200 and the number 3 spot on the hard rock album charts. Of course, they have had both praise and criticism from reviewers over the years, but one thing that many people, especially about this album, would not argue or deny is that it is one of the most hard and heavy albums of the band's career. While it may not have varied too greatly in style from its preceding two albums, it certainly honed the craft and style of sound that they wanted to present here on this album to a much greater degree. And there's a wonderful diversity of sonic soundscapes present on the album, while still in the whole and in general holding fast and tight to that thrash sound. They have influences of punk, as you hear in the song on the album entitled Pig, and you'll also hear kind of new wave of British heavy metal in some of the tracks, such as Down to the Bone or It's All Yours. And in fact, we're going to take a little bit of a listen to the song It's All Yours, a snippet from the central part of that song right now. When it burns. breakdown in the track It's All Yours, it once more highlights the outstanding drumming of Ron Lipnicki. Again, I can't praise his performance on the albums he recorded with Overkill enough. He really did a brilliant job, and the drumming is just spectacular, especially in this clip that I chose here. And you also get a little bit of a taste of Dave Linsky's lead guitar work. Really phenomenal stuff. He has some beautiful lead work throughout the album. And of course there's Dee Dee's bass just driving the undercurrent of the sound with ferocious glee. He's just so powerful in his presence, and it's such a deep register on the bass that it really comes through marvelously. It's got such a force to it. It pushes the music ever forward. And it's easy to hear why this album charted as well as it did. And while some critics, again, may say that it didn't really differentiate itself too greatly from its predecessors, it is clear that this album has its unique Overkill sound. And in my opinion, that is part of what makes Overkill Overkill. And what they do, they know who they are. They're a band that is confident in the style of music that they create, and they don't feel they have to worry about going into or exploring too many other areas. They've already done that. They've recorded 19 albums, and over their career they've had a great deal of variety in many different styles of soundscapes. If you listen to Horrorscope or Necroshine, those albums are radically different than what you hear from the years 2000 upwards. So they have experimented, and they've found their roots, if you would. They've found their sound and their signature style. And so it really is no different than, let's say, AC/DC, who for a few decades now have done nothing but release album after album, which has basically the same format and formula. They're sonically not very diverse, but Overkill manages to bring some unique energy while maintaining their signature style. They have a wonderful grasp of just who they are and what it is they're trying to present in their art, and they bring it through brilliantly. And White Devil Armory, I think, is one of the most powerful examples of them at their finest. One quick note before I close out the video is that I think one of the best tracks on the album is actually a bonus track. It was it's listed, I should say, as a bonus track. There are 2 bonus tracks on the album. And the first one they wrote themselves. Dee Dee and Blitz wrote the song. It's called The Fight Song. And this is a kind of a punk-sounding song. It's really quite a gem. It's still very thrashy, but it's also a very upbeat and celebratory kind of song. It deals lyrically with camaraderie and the excitement and energy that comes from excessive drinking and bar fighting. And so there is that element to it. It's not meant to be taken too seriously, but it is certainly a song that has an honor and a tribute to the people and the style of life that are found through rock and roll or through heavy metal, and the bond that holds this group of fans and people together. And so it's present in that song, especially with lyrics such as, "Raise your glass to the broken ones, to the ones you've beaten down. Though they tried and failed, they never failed to try, so respect all around." And this just shows their, great passion and energy for what they do. The second bonus track on the album is a wonderful cover song of a Nazareth song from one of Nazareth's biggest albums, and it's entitled Miss Misery. And it is delivered with all of the quintessential Overkill flair. It's beautifully done. I listened to White Devil Armory when it was released practically every day, nonstop. It was my album of choice for that period of time. It was extremely energetic and driving in its sound, and so it really resonated with me. I love that kind of music, especially when I'm, walking or, going about my daily routine. Having that kind of energy in the background is just wonderful. And so I didn't just only listen to it for the purposes of this review. I won't claim to be one of those people who was a huge Overkill fan through maybe the mid-1980s. I remember when they released their first album in 1985, and I heard their music. I had already been a fan at that point of Metallica and Megadeth and Anthrax, and so those were bands that I was really into, and Overkill was a very different style, a very East Coast thrash style, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't get deeply into the band until around Horoscope and The Years of Decay, and I enjoyed those albums. I still love The Years of Decay. I think it's one of their greatest albums, but the albums that they started releasing after Dave Linsk joined, performing lead guitar work on the albums, I think that those albums forward have been much more clearly defined in what the band is and what the band wants to present to their audience and perform on stage. And they do just such a wonderful job with their style and with these songs. So I think that White Devil Armory is an album that you should consider checking out if you're at all curious from the snippets that you've heard. It's available probably on every digital distribution platform that you could have. You can also get physical copies. I bought my physical copy when it was released in 2014, and I still listen to it outside of having prepared for this video. I still listen to it and consider it a great album. It's just so energetic and really has wonderful energy to it. So I give it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The performances from the musicians are just wonderful. Derek and Dave do brilliantly on the guitar throughout the entire album. The playing by Dee Verney on bass is spectacular. He has a few portions on the album that he gets to really shine his chops and his fretwork. And of course, as I've already stated, Ron Lipnicki's drumming throughout the entire album is just brilliant. He's definitely something that made those albums really special. It's not to say Jason Bittner is not a good drummer. I think that the last album that came out in 2019, which was the first album that Jason Bittner recorded on with the band, is really wonderful to listen to. But definitely I think the albums from the period that Ron Lipnicki was in the band, those 5 albums, have a certain style to them that he brought by his abilities and skills with the drum kit. So I definitely think that White Devil Armory is the cream of the crop from that period and something that you should consider checking out. And with that being said, I thank you very much for your time and attention. Please do consider, as I said, pressing that like button, subscribing to the channel, and also, if you would be so generous, I would thank you for visiting the Patreon page and considering becoming a patron. Until next time, please stay well and peace. Bye for now.